So I'm going to show you how to make some kind of grid guide layout in the same way that this image is that we've seen in the lecture from the analog algorithm book. I'm not going to use a spaceman, I'm just going to use a picture that I think is funny. So here's a picture of a space cat. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to put this into Illustrator. So just to look at creating a new document in Illustrator, create new, I'm just going to do a print one. So I'm going to, because I want A4 basically. So I'm going to choose an A4 document. All the stuff over here is the size and measurement info and stuff like that, similar to what you see in InDesign. I'm going to change it to RGB because we're doing it for screens. I'm not going to worry about the bleed or anything like that. It's going to stay on one artboard. Don't need to worry about these things. And I'm going to press create. So now I have an empty canvas. I copied Command and C or Control and C the cat picture out of Photoshop. So I should just be able to paste it in to Illustrator here. And then cat's on his own layer, Fuzz. I'm going to make him a little bit opaque so that I can kind of see through him, or he's not so imposing. And then I'm going to go up to view up here and I'm going to switch on my grid and I'm going to switch on snap to, let's try snap to pixel for now and see how we get on with that. If I was going to snap to grid, then you can see that there's a grid all around on the outside of here, and this is going across the image as well, and it's going to mean that lines are going to stick to that in the same sort of way that things were sticking to guides and stuff in InDesign. So there's more tools here in Illustrator than there was in InDesign, and for what we want to use, I just want to use the line tool, which is over here, and I want to look at the fill. I don't want it to have a fill, I just want to make lines, so I'm going to tell that to be none. And then, oh, hang on a minute. Let's go and make a new layer. Right, make a new layer, and let's go and now we should be able to choose a color. So let's get a bright green. There we go. And so we've got green lines and a white fill. Okay, so now what I want to think about is where I might divide this image up, and I'm just going to draw lines basically with the line tool, and you can see sometimes it's trying to help me just to go, oh, that's the middle of the page. All right, so let's just stick one down the middle there just to divide things up, and we can see we've got a kind of guide thing helping us here just to divide the page into quarters like that. And what else have we got? Now we can start to think about some other kind of lines that are happening here. We've got the cat's eyes, so let's perhaps put a line on across those, and we've got this line that comes down here from that flag, so let's go down and see where that joins up with anything. Doesn't really join up with much, but it's going down to there. We've got a kind of line going across here, up the shoulder and across the head, sort of taking us to there. We've got another similar line that's coming up this way here. And then we've got some lines that go across this synthesizer thing. So let's go one there, and then there's another one down here, like that. There's also a line that goes up there, and then there's another one, let's see, that just kind of disappears off over there. Let's just see if we can select all of those lines and thicken them up a bit so that we can see them better. So I just press Command or Control and A to select them all, and I'm going to go over to the stroke over here and just plus that a little bit so that I can see them a bit more clearly, like that. So there's all of those lines, and what we could think about now is how we could also try and add some circles in here, just to think in the same way as we have here, where there's a blob around the head and there's a blob around this part of the torso. So let's go back in here so we could get some kind of head blob going. So what we'll go and do is choose the rectangle tool over on the toolbar, and we'll click and hold the mouse down, and we'll go to the ellipse tool instead, and then that should still be the same green outline, no fill, and we can make a circle. If we hold down the Option or Alt key, then it should come out from a central point where we've just clicked, and I'm holding down Shift to keep it circular, and I'm just going to let go there, and I think I want to move it, so I'm going to use one of these two tools over here. This is the selection tool, which is like the move tool in Photoshop, or the selection tool in InDesign, and this is the direct selection tool, similar in InDesign, where you can pick individual things up and move them around. Okay, so let's pop a circle around the cat's face like that. And then maybe there's another big circle that's going to go here. So I'll go back to the circle tool. I'm just going to kind of guess where the central point could be. I'm eyeballing it. I'm going to hold down Option and Shift again and pull that circle out from there to get that. There we go. I feel like pushing it over to the right a little bit. So with that selected, as you can see, I should just be able to use my cursor keys just to push it over a little bit. And I would say, as far as I'm concerned, that grid is done. So what else can we do with that now? Well, we can go and have a look at the layers over here in Illustrator. And you can see that I did something wrong, and I didn't keep the cat on its own layer, and I have all of these other sub layers within that one layered file, so I can just drag that up there. So now what I should be able to do is turn off the cat and just be left with the grid like that. If I want to edit any of these little lines, okay, let's just go and make sure that we're on this document. You can see this is the active layer here. It's got a little square highlighting it. They're all selected. And if I use my direct selection tool, I'll just click away from the actual canvas area. And now if I click on a point, you can see that that's selected that layer or sub layer in there. And I can just drag that up and just squish these back into so that they're all inside the canvas. You wouldn't necessarily need to do this. I'm just showing you this for the sake of it. And that one's not going to move because it's sticking to pixels or the grid, whichever. No. There we go. That'll do. All right. So if we think about this in something like Photoshop terms, and we know that Photoshop is a image editing piece of software that uses layers. We can make Photoshop files out of Illustrator, and as long as we have things on separate layers like we have here, so I just want to make a new layer in the same sort of way that you would in Photoshop, where you can just click here to add a new layer, and then as you saw, I just selected all of these things and I was able to drag them into that other layer like that. So now this layer is useless. This layer is my space cat, and this layer is my grid. Okay, so I can save this as an Illustrator file, file and save, and let's just leave that on the desktop, and it's Illustrator space cat Adobe Illustrator file, save. Yeah, and here it's just giving us some options. It's going to be PDF compatible. That's probably a good idea. Press OK. And if we go to save as, we can make PDFs, just spit those out from it, but I'm not bothered about that at the moment. But if you have different versions of Illustrator across different machines, or you're going to be working somewhere else on an Illustrator file, what you can do is you can save your file as a PDF out of here, and you can open it on another version of Illustrator and you're still able to work with it. If we want to put it into Photoshop, we can just go File and Export As, and then we've got other options here. We can do the normal sort of JPEG thing where you would just send it out as a JPEG and then it will be a flat image. You could put that on Padlet. For what I'm talking about now, we want to be able to put it into Photoshop, so we can go and choose the Photoshop option. So now it's just changed the file name to SpaceCat.psd, and we're ignoring artboards and things like that. Okay, so we can press export, and then here color mode is RGB because that's what we started with. Resolution, we can leave that as it's defaulting to here, which is 150 pixels per inch. It's not really an issue. We don't want to flatten the image, we want layers, because we've got layers here. Okay, and it can be editable. We haven't got any type in it, so we don't need to worry about that. So we'll press OK, and now it's going to make a Photoshop file for us. And if we go over into Photoshop now, and I've got my SpaceCat.psd, press open, and then you can see that I've got two layers here. I've got SpaceCat and I've got my grid. And so now if I wanted to start laying out some text and things, then I can do that onto another layer here. Just go and press new layer and go and use my type tool, make a type box, do some type. Obviously not in green, on top of green, because we can't see that.